Hey guys, I'm Tom and I make electronic music under the name Bamboo Leaves. If you're new here, this channel is for those of you who want to learn about making alternative electronic music. Think down-tempo, electronica, organic house, and the rest. So if any of that appeals to you, make sure to subscribe to this channel and you can catch the videos as I make them. In today's video, we're going to be breaking down a little track in the style of Pablo Nouvelle. As you will have heard in the introduction, this style revolves around natural, organic sounding drums, atmospheric synths, and much more. So let's jump into the DAW now. First sound, we've got some synthesizers. So we're going to start with this top one. This is called the Synth Wob High. Cool, so you can see the notes there. We just kind of generally got a combination of two notes playing. I've used Serum to make this synth. It's a pretty simple synth. What we've got is we've got these two oscillators, oscillator A and oscillator B. So what we've got a basic shapes and we've got, it'll be just the sawtooth wave that comes with it. Basically, all this synth does is it has an envelope. So envelope 2 here has a really kind of quick attack. It's not instant, but it just kind of opens up and then it closes right down, and that envelope is mapped to the cutoff filter over here. So if I play it, you can kind of see the quick whipping, like whoa, 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 whoa. And that's basically all the sound is. We're using a low pass filter and an envelope to just create that movement and that wob sound, and that's something I've heard in one of Pablo Nouvelle's songs. I've also blended in a little bit of noise with this noise oscillator over here. So if I took off all of the extra processing, we'll have a listen to how it actually sounds on its own. So first I'll bring in this bandpass filter of an EQ. We'll have a listen to that. So I'm just sort of thinning out the sound, taking out some of the low ends and some of the high ends. I've also got a compressor on there to rein in some of those dynamics. So I'm just squashing it, trying to make it more of like a compressed sound. I've added a Valhalla vintage verb, and I've got this fat snare room sound where I've got the decay quite quick. So I wanted it to sound like it was kind of really natural and in a space. I didn't want it to have that really long reverb decay tail. I wanted it to be quite like roomy. So let's have a listen to that now. Without it. And with it. And lastly, I have included an LFO tool that is just doing the side chaining with the kick drum. So that's just opening up some space for the kick drum, and it gives it a nice creative pumping effect as well. Something else I want to note on this track is as the synth goes further into the track and it plays along, I do a bit of automation on the cutoff filter. So the cutoff is sort of starts quite low and it gives it like a whoa, 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 whoa sound, and when I kind of bring in some of this automation, I open up the filter just a little bit so it has the same envelope shape, but it's just further up the cutoff filter sound. So if I just play this and you keep an eye on this cutoff filter over here, you'll see what I mean. So I've just done that to keep it quite interesting and to keep the track kind of moving forward. The next instrument I've got on here is another synth, and this is just the same synth effectively with a few different bits of processing applied to it, but it's just playing the bass note. So if I just solo on its own, and if I blend it in with the other synth, I take it out. Yeah, so it's just providing that bass lower sound, and it's kind of, this is a technique where you layer on synths. So you have one that's sort of playing some of the mid and high range, you might have it spread quite high and wide in the mix, and then you have like another synth that's playing some lower notes, and you might bring that more into the mono space just directly in front of you. You blend them in, it sounds like one synth that's just kind of really big and thick and all around, and it's kind of a nice technique that is used in a lot of these alternative genres as well as in pop music and EDM. So for that synth, again, it's the same thing. It's just got an envelope that's opening and closing that filter. I've got another EQ on there, but this one's a bit more aggressive, so I'm taking off some more of those high ends. I've got the compressor on there again. It's just reining in those frequencies. This one, I've actually included a overdrive, so I would have put that on there to give it a bit more crunch, a bit more grit. Let's see how it sounds without it. And with it. You might not be able to hear much of a difference, but I sort of think it gives it a bit of crunch, it gives it a different tone, and that's what I wanted. Next, I've got the Valhalla Vintage Reverb, again, doing the fat snare room sound like I did with the previous one, and again, an LFO tool doing that sidechain pumping. Okay, so again, just those two synths playing together. Next up, I've got this bass synth. Cool, so that's like quite a retro sounding bass synth sound. It complements the other synths as well, so if we listen to them all together. So it plays on a few of the notes where the other synth wobs aren't playing. So it's like wow, wow, bow, bow, wow, 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 bow, bow, wow, wow. And it kind of gives a bit of a call and response feel as well. And it has its own driving rhythm. To achieve this sound, I have used the Logic retro synth. We've got a sawtooth wave and we've got a square wave with the pulse width pushed up. Equal blend of oscillator 1 and oscillator 2. And I've got this LUSH low pass filter with a bit of a resonance boost, and I've got an envelope that's doing a bit of movement on this, so it'll be filter envelope. It's just kind of, again, similar to the wob sounds. It kind of just has an attack that's very quick and then a decay, so just the filter goes wow, wow, wow. For additional processing on there, I seem to have only just taken out a lot of those sub low ends and I've boosted those mid ranges, so I'm not actually boosting many of those bass frequencies because I think there's enough in there from the kick, but I'm boosting some of the mid lows. And again, I've got a LFO tool on there to help with my side chaining. Right, next up we've got this Arp Synth. So later on in the track, I bring in this additional synth sound that is an arpeggiated kind of retro synth sound. So let's solo it and have a listen. I quite like that sound. You know, it's got the sort of the Stranger Things 80s synth wavy kind of vibe to it. You've got that retro synth that has got an arpeggiated sound, and then it's got that reverb on it, and it sort of opens up and closes down. I think it sounds quite nice in the background. So for that, I've got these notes that they're just playing consistently. And in order to get it to arpeggiate and play through all of those notes, I've got the Logic arpeggiator on the track here. I've got it so the octave range has 2 octaves, so it plays the notes, those 4 notes, and also those 4 notes an octave higher. I've got it so it has a rate of 1/16 and it just plays upwards. So it goes dun 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 dun. I could change it to going downwards and it would kind of descend. So let's listen to that. It also sounds cool, but I wanted it to go upwards. As you probably can tell, I've got some automation on there. So it starts off with 1/16 of a rate, and then I automate it to increase to 1/64 dotted, and that's where it kind of goes. So that's where that sound comes in from. Let's have a listen with the automation showing on screen. And then, yeah, it just returns back to that 1/16 rate. Cool. So for instrumentation on that one, I've got the retro synth again. It's just playing some... Sorry, I was just enjoying myself there. Yeah, so it's just got, again, it's quite like a plucky synth sound. I've got just two sawtooth waves. I've got this filter envelope that you can see the shape is just an attack and decay, and that is just pushing that envelope every time it plays. Yeah, there's not much to it. It's quite simple, but when you blend it with the arpeggiator, and then I've got a bus over here that's sending that sound off to a Valhalla vintage verb with quite a long decay. It's a concert hall, and I'm also sidechaining that one with an LFO tool just so that it gives a pump to the sound and clears room for the kick. Yeah, just pushing it through that vintage verb, having that retro sound. It sounds quite cool to me. So if I take off the reverb, you can hear it. I'll bring it in. Right, next synth, we've got a Bloop synth. This is really simple. It's a single note. It just looks and sounds much like this. So it just kind of comes in to provide a single note that just dots in there, gives a bit more atmosphere and a bit more interest to the track. So if I play along with the rest of the synths, you might be able to hear it and why it kind of comes in there. So to achieve this, I have got the quick sampler in Logic, default preset. It has got a sine wave, and I've got that just kind of the envelope. It's just plucking, so it just kind of goes doom, doom. So if I play it, I've done this sound quite a lot in my other tutorials. That's kind of a bit of an origination in the Disclosure kind of synth sound. They use a noise blended with sine waves to make these like plucky, nice, simple sounding key sounds. I've done a video on that actually, so you can check it out when a link somewhere above me. So on top of that, I've got a vintage verb that's giving that reverb decay, and once more, I've got the LFO tool doing the sidechaining. Okay, so that's it for the instrumentation parts of it. Now we're going to be moving on to the drums. So I'm trying to get that kind of natural sounding, quite simple, kind of soft drums. We got hand drums in there and bongos to give a worldly sound. It's just kind of a few nice natural sounding samples that I've thrown into this to make this drum beat. Let's start with a kick. So just a kind of a soft, very dead, not much click, not loads of sub end. It's just a nice sort of tight, round sounding kick. I haven't got any processing on that, so that's just me dragging the kick straight in, and boom, sounded good to me. Let's check out next. We've got this tambourine. So that's happening on every other kick. and I've got a bit of a fade that I've introduced here, so I've just faded out because I wanted the tail to die a lot quicker. On top of that, I've added a EQ where I roll off some of the absolute top ends. It's a bit too shiny up there, and I've got a sample delay on there, so I delayed the right hand signal, and that pushed the sounds really wide, and I wanted them out there in the mix. Another sound that complements that tambourine is this hand drum. So I've got that actually quite low down in the mix, so it's not meant to be very obvious, it's just meant to give a bit more of a transient to the tambourine. So if we listen to them together. Next we have a couple of stick sounds. So later on in the track I use these stick samples of something, you know, 2 bits of wood hitting together to form the kind of the snare or the clap sound. So here it is. Let's do it with the kick and the tambourines. So just the sticks on their own. Yeah, so that's just like some samples of some pieces of wood that are being knocked together. I think with the top one, I have got that transposed to -5, so I've pitched that one down. And the stick 2, I've just pitched it down by -2. I thought it fitted better into the track in a lower register to give it a bit of a deeper vibe. So on top of those, I've just got some EQ. So I've got bandpass EQ where I'm taking out some of the low energy and the high energy. And I also have pushed these out to a Valhalla snare room sound, so that gives it a bit more of that natural room sound. So if I actually took off the reverb from those, it would probably sound quite flat. And then I bring the reverb back in. We've got 2 shakers, so let's have a listen to those on their own. So I've got 2 different shaker samples there. One of them is a little bit higher. So this first one is like a higher pitched one, and the other one is a lower pitch. So the first one, that's quite a mono sound, so that's kind of happening directly in front of you. And the next shaker, it's just as part of the sample, but it's a stereo sample, so it's pushed out wide, so it kind of goes. It kind of gives a bit of movement to the sound. On top of those, I've just taken off some of the absolute high ends to kind of mellow it out a bit. And I've also bussed it to the room Valhalla vintage reverb. Next up, we've got a set of bongos. So I wanted to, as per the Pablo Nouvelle kind of organic housey sound, you tend to have some sort of world percussion thrown in there. So these sticks and shakers, they help with that. But then adding in some hand drums and some bongos that just kind of give like a roll every so often, it gives it that sort of that worldly sound, and it keeps the beat interesting. So if I play these 3 bongos, they're different samples, are just bongos of different pitches. And then later on I have, so like I say, they're just bongo samples. I've just done the bandpass where I take out the low and the high ends. I've got them bussed to the same room snare reverb sound to kind of put it into the same sonic space. And you can see how it's kind of positioned on the grid. So it's a do-do-do-do-do. And if you listen to that along with the rest of the drums, you can kind of, it's not particularly, it's not really up and really aggressive in your face. It just complements the rest of the drums. So let's have a listen to all of those drums. That's quite a simple one today. I'll play all of it together so that you can hear all of those individual parts all playing as one cohesive unit again. Have a listen for any of those things I described, maybe the automation or the reverb sounds. That's it. Thank you for sticking it out to the end. I hope you got something out of this video. Make sure to leave a like or a comment on this video and I'll get around to responding to you. Again, if you like this channel, please subscribe and then you can catch more videos as I make them. Other than that, I'll catch you in the next one.